Entrance. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Hello and welcome to the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravets, along with co-host from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the Saratoga Special, Paul Halloran. Paul, we are very excited in just a few moments to speak with simply one of the best, if the not best trainer in the world, Aidan O'Brien.
Yes, we are waiting on Aidan, and we have plenty to talk about. We're going to get as much in as we can. We'll obviously start with the Classic and move backwards, but this is what the Breeders' Cup is about, right? We talked on our show last night, Howard, the most international representation. I think it's, 80, 60?
Yes,
and
80.
80 up from 60, right? And having him send horses like he's going to send, along with others from over there. We talked a lot about the Japanese, but it really adds to the international flavor of the event. And, we're looking forward to having him on.
Yes, we had him on last year, and he sort of gave us a little bit of breaking news last year on our podcast when he spoke of a horse called City of Troy, who at that time was the talk of the town. I think that was your words exactly, with the 2-year-old. And he mentioned even at that point he wanted to come to America next year, meaning this year. And sure enough, it is going to happen. There was a thought that he actually might come to Saratoga at one point. That did not come to fruition. Paul, before you give us some statistics about Aidan O'Brien in the Breeders' Cup, I do want to talk about our Breeders' Cup Power Pick tip sheet. It is available now. It is anywhere between $30 and $35. That is it, depending if you're a current subscriber. $30 to $35. And Paul, it's over 30 pages of information for Breeders' Cup Friday and Breeders' Cup Saturday. Please go to our website. You can see on the bottom of the screen, hhhracingpodcast.com. There will be a blue banner at the top. Just click on that, and you can easily sign up for our tip sheet. It is extremely inexpensive and very profitable. We highly recommend it. The deadline for that is next Wednesday, the 30th of October. And just to let everyone know, for full disclosure, we are filming today on Thursday, the 24th of October, because some people, Paul, might be watching this or listening to this next week. Before Aidan comes on, as we wait for him in just a few minutes here, Paul, why don't you give us a few stats on Aidan O'Brien in the Breeders' Cup? We don't need to laud his praises, as he's won many, many, many Group 1s, Group 2s, a lot of group races throughout the world. But wow, at the Breeders' Cup has he been fantastic.
So 18 wins, 25 seconds, and 12 thirds for 55 in the money finishes. But the one race that has avoided him, and this is, I think, has a lot to do with City of Troy coming. Aidan has started 13 horses in the Classic. He has been second twice with Henry the Navigator on the synthetic at Santa Anita in 2008. And, of course, Giants Causeway in the great race with Tiznow in 2000. And third in 2013 with Declaration of War, horse that I played, I might add. So he's looking, he has won the Juvenile once, the Juvenile Philly Turf once, the Philly and Mare Turf once, the Marathon, which is no longer among us. Sorry, next. He's won that once, the Mile once, the Juvenile Turf 6 times, and the Turf itself 7 times. And I know you referenced, Howard, his overall stats. How about just saying 407 Group 1 or Grade 1 wins in his career? 37 of those in North America, by the way. So, and he's a young guy. He just turned 55 last week. So.
He did. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Now, for this year, and in our interview that we're going to have with Aidan here in just a few minutes, we're obviously going to ask him about City of Troy. We also are going to ask him about an extremely talented 2-year-old filly that he has called Lake Victoria. Now, again, as of this interview, Thursday, the 24th of October, we do not know who is exactly coming over. The pre-entries were made available yesterday, Wednesday, the 23rd, here in the States and around the world. He has many pre-entries. He also has some cross entries, Paul, that we have to ask him about in, for example, the turf and the filly and mare turf. And as you know, as we discussed before the show, we've discussed it on many of our podcasts, which everyone should go to our YouTube channel, HHH Racing Podcast.com. Just type that in the search bar. We had a show last night regarding the pre-entries Wednesday night. Please check that out. Sometimes when these horses are pre-entered, Paul, they're pre-entered because they are automatic qualifiers. That does not necessarily mean they're going to be actually getting on the plane. Some horses have had a very long campaign. We'll ask Aidan about this, but there's a lot of reasons why Euros or Japanese horses would be pre-entered, Paul, but not actually run at Del Mar.
Yes, as you saw the number of pre-entries, I think it was it 219, I think, for the 14 races. So, obviously you want to have your options open until the last possible minute. In the case of the Euros, the Japanese horses are already on the ground, by the way. I believe all 19 did come. But, in the case of the Euros, there is a quarantine once they arrive. So I would assume the plane is leaving tomorrow, Saturday, because they do want to get them on the track for a few days. But the one thing I think people should be aware of, Howard, is the ship has become a lot less of an issue. I've talked to Aidan's guy at Saratoga, TJ Comerford, many times. The last several years I've watched his horses train, and it used to be a big deal. The hardest part when they ship to Saratoga, Howard, is the drive from JFK up to Saratoga. So I don't think that's an issue at all as far as how the horse is going to perform. It's simply a matter of, whom he's going to send and, what goes into those decisions.
Sure. Now the ship is a little more difficult when it's on the West Coast, but with technology and whatnot and the way they take care of these horses, it's really not that big a deal. In fact, the Japanese horses are already on the grounds as Del Mar opened up their barns, I believe, last weekend. And the Japanese have 19 entrants, I believe, pre-entered. We'll see how many of those actually run. There are 212 international entries, the most since 2018 that ran at Churchill Downs. Again, Aidan is just coming out of a meeting, ladies and gentlemen. So again, he'll be on in just a moment. We're not trying to delay anyone on purpose to talk about information that is absolutely unnecessary. But let's just do a quick handicapping here for a moment, Paul, while we're waiting for Aidan. City of Troy obviously is the story of the Breeders' Cup. I think most people would say they're running him in the Classic. You gave some information. I've seen as low as 7-4 in the anti-post betting on City of Troy. He's obviously gotten a ton of buzz for very good reason. However, the obvious question is, can he handle dirt?
Yes, and Aidan, and we'll talk to him about it. He's done everything he can do with what he has available. So he took him to Southall in English to train on synthetic. It was a much publicized workout. He shipped 5 horses over there, brought his own American starting gate. Obviously Ryan Moore in the irons, and he handled that, but it isn't. And all you can do is simulate it to the best you can. He will presumably be on the track at Del Mar for a few days, but those will just be gallops. So I don't suspect you're going to get any, real indication of how he's handling the dirt, unless he would have, God forbid, really hate it, and act up. But he's a real pro. He is on. He is on the record as saying this is the best horse he's ever trained, which I think is a remarkable statement in lieu of some of the horses we talked about, not just his Breeders' Cup horses, but Galileo, Rock of Gibraltar, Dylan Thomas. We could go on forever. So the one thing, and I do like this horse, I've been talking about this for months now. This has really been the plan for a long time. I believe since last year. You mentioned talked to us even last year about getting this horse to America. And regardless of whether they made the Travers, the ultimate goal was going to be the Breeders' Cup. Just the question is if they could have made the Travers and they didn't. So, this has been a long-term goal for a guy who is about as detail-oriented and professional as they come. So
yes. Well, speaking of Aidan O'Brien, it looks like in our green room they are just setting up and about ready to go. Aidan, I'm assuming Aidan can hear me. If you can hear me, Aidan, just go ahead and give a little thumbs up, and we'll start. Okay, Aidan O'Brien is ready to go in the background. Paul, let's just go ahead and start. Let's bring on once again champion trainer from his home base in Ireland, Mr. Aidan O'Brien. Aidan, how are you doing today, sir?
Yeah, very good, Howard. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for joining us again. We really do appreciate it. We know that you are incredibly busy, so we will get right to the point. Of course, the Breeders' Cup held at Del Mar in San Diego, California. You have some very exciting runners and also other runners on the pre-entry list that we want to talk about very briefly. My good friend at co-host, you know as well, Paul Halloran there is with me. Paul, you go ahead and ask the first question to Aidan, please.
Good morning, Aidan.
Morning.
Good
Paul.
afternoon. Good afternoon, I should say, in your time.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Paul.
You know, Aidan, I know a lot has been said about City of Troy, and you told us last year that the goal was perhaps to get this horse to America this year. I just wanted to ask you, now that we're a week out, how are your feelings about him going into this race now versus all the lead up over the last year?
Yeah, no, everything is good so far, Paul. Yeah, we've done most of the work. He's another bit of work to do in the morning, and hopefully when that's finished, then we'll be a little bit more relaxed. But so far, so good.
And from the beginning, what made you think, other than his ability, and I know you're on the record as saying he may be the best horse you've ever trained, but what about him made you think that American dirt racing might be a realistic goal?
I suppose he's obviously by justified. He's a very high cruiser. He gets the trip very well, and he's tactically usually quick from the gates. So I suppose a combination of all those things, really, Paul.
Terrific. Aidan, let me ask you a little bit about the Classic. And obviously, I know you're not going to want to give away your strategy, but you have mentioned that you prefer that he be forward. He's obviously very tactical. He breaks well from the gate. Ideally, in a perfect scenario, Aidan, would you prefer him to be on the lead or perhaps tracking from behind?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Howard. It's going to depend on what way Ryan wants to do, but obviously you'd like him to come out of gates and have a nice position. I'd imagine Ryan will let him get comfortable wherever that is, but I don't think it really matters. But like in an ideal world, you prefer not to be getting kicked back. I think that's the way everybody in dirt races think, really, don't they? So if hopefully you'd like to see him come out and come forward and be in a nice position where he's not getting too much kickback, really, I suppose, really. But I'm not really sure how, because it'll depend on how he break and then what decisions Ryan will make through the race, really.
It would be fair to say, Aidan, that you would prefer an outside draw, because in theory, of course, that would mean the chance of kickback would be less.
I think so, but who knows what's right and what's wrong. But obviously,
Sure.
We always prefer things, but it doesn't always work the way we think it should. And a lot of other variabilities that we can't control will come in there. But I think in an ideal world, you'd like to be out, come out kind of with the field. But like our races wouldn't be near as quick as your races would be early, and especially the Classic, really.
Of course. Let's go on to other Friday races, Paul and Aidan. You have a very talented 2-year-old filly that is listed in the pre-entries, Lake Victoria, 4 for 4. She is, again, she's one of the more talented 2-year-old fillies I think you probably had in your career, is fair to say. She's won on the lead, 2 back. She actually came from the back of the pack and angled out and won. Could you please tell us about Lake Victoria, Bubbling, and Heaven's Gate, and who do you plan on sending, if you may, to Del Mar?
Yeah, I think Bubbling probably won't go. She's had a hard season, and we're going to see how she is tomorrow. But if she's not doing everything right and all her bloods and everything are perfect, she won't go. But Heaven's Gate, lovely straightforward filly. She's won a group race last time. We always thought she would get a mile. She's tactical. She's hardy. And then obviously, like you said, Lake Victoria's lovely filly. She's done everything we've asked from her. It's unusual. She won her maiden over 7, then her group race over 7, and then her another Group 1 over 7, and then she went back and won a Group 1 over 6. So like what you said, she's made the run and she's been ridden from the back, and she looks a kind of a unique kind of filly, really.
And you are planning on sending Lake Victoria if all things go well in the next 24
Yeah,
hours?
that's the plan, Howard.
That's
Absolutely.
terrific. Paul, I'm very excited to hear that because this filly is very talented. She has a nice turn of foot. And Aidan, I'm assuming that you very much like that she's tactical. The way that Del Mar plays, of course, it's more of like a paper clip type of track. It's relatively sharp turns. And Lake Victoria, you would assume if she breaks, will not be too far off the pace.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I'd imagine that's what Ryan will do. That's what he usually does. And like I said, she's won a Group 1. Her last run was over 6. So she's offhanded, straightforward, thinks quick, big and powerful, and so we're looking forward to seeing her run, Howard, really. Yeah,
Brad, she's by Frankel, I believe. So yes,
absolutely.
Yes, and Frankel was a pretty good horse, Paul. Last time I checked. Let's talk about the juvenile turf, Paul, and the turf sprint for Aidan. Go ahead, you have a question.
Yeah, you have 2 listed in each, Aidan, and we were just wondering what the plans were for the juvenile turf sprint. You have Ides of March and Whistle Jacket, and in the juvenile turf, Henri Matisse and Monumental. Have you made any decisions on which of them are coming?
Yeah, at the moment, we hope the 2, Whistle Jacket and Ides of March, will run in the turf juvenile sprint. Paul, both of them are well. Whistle Jacket has won a Group 1. He was second in a Group 1 last time. We just felt maybe we didn't ride him forward enough, and then Ides of March won a group race before that, and he won very nicely. So I suppose in the Colts mile race, Henri Matisse, the plan is to go with him. Monumental probably won't go. I'd say looking at him this morning, probably not. Henri Matisse, we put blinkers on the last time, probably wasn't the right thing. He got a bad bump early, and he kind of got a little bit shocked by it. He was probably a little bit immature for it. The ground was soft. He's a beautiful, good moving colt. We always thought he was very classy, and he stayed in very good form since the run. So we just felt it might be a nice opportunity for him.
Aidan, I was just wondering, you've won the juvenile turf 6 times and the filly juvenile 1 time with Meditate in 2022. Do you have a particular reason why you think that your colts have been a little better at the Breeders' Cup than your fillies with the 2-year-olds?
Yeah, I'm not sure there was any reason, Howard, really. Just the way it fell, really. Obviously, Meditate, when we brought her, she was very good. She won very nicely. And I suppose maybe we brought better class colts, maybe, but I don't, not any particular reason, I think, Howard.
Terrific. Let's go on to Saturday. We're going to talk about the turf first, Aidan. You have 4 in the pre-entries, 5, Luxembourg, Continuous, Content, and Wingspan are first preference in the filly and mare turf. Between Illinois, Luxembourg, and Continuous, could you please talk about those 3 and who you plan on sending to Del Mar?
Yeah, at the moment, it looks like Luxembourg. We always thought 1.5 miles would suit him well, and the fast ground would suit him well, and he's in very good form. We think Illinois mightn't go. He's a little bit of a foot the last few days, and we don't want to be bringing him out and you're not getting to run. He's a little bit of a corn and it's a little bit sore, so we're going to see how that is this evening. And then we think Content and Wingspan, they're 2 lovely fillies. Wingspan just got beat last time in over 1.5 miles in soft ground, but we thought this shouldn't be any problem to her. And then Content ran disappointing last time. The ground was bad and the pace was slow up front, and she likes to come from the back and just never got into it. So we think both of those will run in the fillies race instead of the turf.
Terrific. And Paul, that leads to your next question. Content will be coming back on pretty short rest, but Aidan has done that before, Paul.
Yeah, Content, Aidan just won last weekend, right, on Champions Day, and before that, 2 weeks before that. Obviously, she's the type of filly who you think can handle the 3 races in 5 weeks.
Yeah, usually with our horses, Paul, at this time of the season, they're very fit and they take races like they don't have races. You know, I suppose their level of fitness is very high at this time of the year, and if they're well and they've come out of races, we're always happy to let them go again. But usually at this time of the year, they don't mind backing up because the season has been long and they're kind of bulletproof at this stage anyway.
And you do have Ylang, oh God, I can't pronounce it. Ylang Lang, also listed as a first preference in the filly and mare turf. Will she come?
Yes, that's the plan, Paul. Yes, the plan was to run Yang Yang. So she was a little bit disappointing the last day in France. Ryan just said he took his time on her, and then he got back a little bit too far, and the ground was bad, and the pace was slow. So a lot of stuff didn't work for her. So he kind of said just to put a line through that run, and we always thought this track will suit her. The ground will suit her, and she might wear a pair of blinkers. We've had blinkers on her the last day, and she's traveling very strong, and we just have to decide whether it's the right thing or not. But we're very happy with her.
Just to pivot back quickly to Luxembourg, I find this to be very fascinating horse, Aidan. He ran huge in Hong Kong last year. He wired a field in his last start, but he's been a bit inconsistent. I'm assuming you're going to be forward with him, and the ground, as you said, should suit him well. I think he's definitely an interesting prospect in the turf, and it's a wide open race this year, Aidan, as I'm sure you've taken a look at that, and I think he's got a big shot if he can run back to proper form.
Yeah, I'd agree, Howard, and that's it. And usually this time of year he comes back very well anyway, and he was kind of playing second fiddle a little bit to a lot of our horses up to now. He's got through it all. He took it like a man, and he's kind of sticking his chest out, showing that he's kind of ready to go again and leave him go by himself. So that's what we're thinking of doing.
Terrific. Well, good luck with him. Paul, when you hear Aidan say that horse is feeling good and looking good, I think American punters and punters throughout the world just might want to pay attention to that. Let's talk about the mile, Aidan, as our last race. And again, we really do appreciate your time. I know you're extremely busy right now. All the viewers and listeners of the HHH Racing podcast, of course, appreciate your time. You have several pre-entered. You have Diego Velasquez, Henry Longfellow, Mountain Bear. I would assume River Tiber is not going to go, but I don't want to speak for yourselves. You have some very talented 3-year-olds there in that list. Talk about your plans to ship for the mile race.
Yeah, at the moment it looks like Diego and River Tiber, sorry. So it looks like the two of those. We're very happy with Diego. He did a lovely run the last day. We kind of saved him for this, and we thought that he might travel after this. But we're very happy with him. Straightforward horse, a mile should be no problem to him. And River Tiber ran last time, and he ran very well. He ran better than it looked. We thought the fast ground would suit him, and he is in a good place. So we're hoping that he gets in and all that. Mountain Bear probably might not go. He's the same. He has a little bit of a corn, so he mightn't get to travel. And Henry, he mightn't go either. So, but he's in good form, but still, he mightn't go. John is coming to trot him this evening to see if your vets would be happy with him. So, and if he thinks they won't, he won't go.
Very interesting.
Hey,
go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, I was going to say, Aidan, we'll, as we wrap this up, that is a fact, and I want to talk about Diego Velasquez, but the vet issue is a factor. You had a horse that was scratched by the vets. There's an American sprinter who was taken out the other day. How much of a factor is that in your thinking now, the real scrutiny that these horses come under when they arrive by the American vets?
Yeah, we obviously try not to go if we think they're going to get scratched. And obviously your thresholds are much higher than ours. And that's probably because you race on much faster ground than us. And our ground is slower, and you get away with a lot more. But obviously your vets know a lot more about it, and they know the type of horse that could get injured or the movement of a horse that might get injured. And like obviously we would be very much guided by them, really. But we know if a horse is a bit scratchy or anyway unlevel, they probably won't let them run. So we don't want to be bringing them over and asking them to, or getting, or have for them and putting them in a position where they have to scratch them, really. We know exactly where they're coming from, and that's why John checks him so much here before the travel, and if he's any doubt, then he just said, listen, there's no point, so but we know exactly where you're coming from, and the reason your vets have to be so strict, your ground is faster, and quicker ground is always more prone to horses getting injured, and that's just the way it is. So our ground is a lot more forgiving, and horses probably get away with a lot more here than they do over with G.
Of course. And the last question, Aidan, again, we appreciate your time. I think a lot of American punters especially would be curious to know how you prepare at Ballydoyle. your horses, for example, like Lake Victoria, that have not been around a bend and have just been on a straight? I know some trainers take them to different tracks like Southwell or Kempton or whatnot. What do you do specifically for horses that have not been around a bend to prepare them for those sharper left-hand turns at Del Mar?
Yeah. Usually, Howard, if those horses are that good and that classy, they'll be in a gear lower anyway, and they don't find a problem if they're doing everything right, moving right, riding right, left, right, balance right. They don't have any problem falling around. Like, I'd imagine over that distance that Ryan will be falling on her anyway. So it's usually straightforward enough, and usually ability out at the end of the day, usually. And she is a straightforward filly, and everything she's always done has always been very straightforward, really.
And you don't anticipate the 2 turns or the mile being an issue for her at all, correct?
I don't think so, Howard. If they're good enough, it shouldn't be a problem. And if she got a nice position, she'd be very happy to folly. Like, as you know, our horses kind of are used to following each other, and she'll folly the field around like she was doing a canter. And I'm sure Ryan will have her in a position. If she's good enough, he'll let her go on the straight.
Yes. Aidan, we really do appreciate your time once again. Thank you very much for coming. We look forward, Paul and I will both be there in person. We look forward to seeing you in the paddock and hopefully in the winner's circle in the Breeders' Cup 2024 this year. Thank you very much. Cheers. Have a great day, Aidan.
Yeah, pleasure, Howard. Pleasure, Paul.
Thanks, Aidan.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it.
You too. Thanks, lads.
All righty, Aidan O'Brien, there we go. Paul gave us a lot of really good information. I am very excited about Lake Victoria. This is one of the most talented horses, 2-year-olds for sure, that he is sending over. And it's very exciting. Again, we appreciate everyone being on today and following us and watching and listening. The one and only Aidan O'Brien. We wish everyone much success in the Breeders' Cup. And as we say, crush your bets at the Breeders' Cup 2024. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Howard Kravets, if you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.